When Jessica, my wife, appeared at the Homeowners Association HOA meeting in her Navy uniform, everything changed completely. Her crisp navy dress blues immaculate with service medals gleaming under the fluorescent lights, and her stern face made the entire room fall dead silent. The smug smirk on the HOA president's face, Karen's, vanished, replaced by a look of uncomfortable surprise. "I apologize for being late," Jessica said, her voice calm, but carrying the authority of someone who commands sailors for a living. "Now, before we discuss your intention to evict my family while I'm serving our country, I'd like to review exactly which federal laws you're planning to violate today." Karen's face went pale. Clearly, this was not the ending they expected for this drama. We were just a normal family chasing the American dream. "I'm Mark, an IT specialist, and my wife Jessica is a lieutenant in the Navy. After years of saving, we finally found our perfect home. A charming colonial in a well-maintained neighborhood with good schools for our 2 kids. The HOA seemed reasonable during our home tour. Just basic rules to maintain property values, the realtor assured us. The monthly fee was steep, but covered landscaping and a community pool. We signed the paperwork and moved in while Jessica was on shore duty. For the first few months, everything was perfect. We repainted the house using approved colors, replaced the mailbox from the approved list, and even joined the neighborhood watch. We followed every rule. The trouble started when Jessica received orders for a 6-month deployment. 2 weeks after she shipped out, I found a violation notice taped to our front door. Apparently, our grass was half an inch too tall. I apologized and mowed immediately, but the next day another notice. Our trash bins had been left out 4 hours too long. Soon it was a new violation every few days. The kids' basketball hoop previously approved was suddenly non-regulation. The American flag on our porch was improperly displayed. Even the flowers Jessica had planted before leaving were deemed unauthorized vegetation. I tried reasoning with them. "I'm solo parenting while my wife serves overseas," I explained to Karen, the HOA president, a woman with a perpetual scowl and helmet-like blonde hair. She just smiled coldly. "Rules are rules. We don't make exceptions." When I looked around the neighborhood, I noticed other homes with basketball hoops, flags, and flower beds identical to ours. That's when I realized we were being singled out. The real trouble began when I received a certified letter. The HOA was fining us $100 per day for ongoing violations. The list included ridiculous items, excessive foot traffic, my kids playing in our own yard, improper window coverings, the blackout curtains in my daughter's room, and unauthorized vehicle, my father-in-law's truck when he visited to help with the kids. Within weeks, they claimed we owed over $2,000. I contested each violation, providing photos of identical situations at board members' homes. They refused my appeals without explanation. Then they escalated. A second letter arrived stating our continued non-compliance and confrontational attitude constituted a significant disturbance to community harmony. They were initiating proceedings to place a lien on our home and force sale for bylaw violations. I nearly collapsed reading those words. They weren't just harassing us. They were trying to take our home away while my wife was serving her country halfway across the world. This wasn't just about rules or fines anymore. This was our home, the one we'd stretched our finances to afford, where our kids finally had stability after 3 military moves. We'd poured $30,000 into renovations. Our savings were tied up in this house, and with Jessica's deployment pay, we were just managing the mortgage. Housing prices had skyrocketed since we bought the place. If forced to sell, we couldn't afford anything comparable in the same school district. Our son had finally found a therapist who was helping with his anxiety. Our daughter had made the soccer team. At night, after the kids were asleep, I'd video chat with Jessica when possible. "They're trying to break us," I admitted, exhausted. I don't know how to fight this. The stress was crushing me. I'd lost weight, wasn't sleeping. The kids sensed something was wrong, growing quieter as I fielded yet another hostile inspection from the HOA's compliance committee. I needed Jessica, but she was 7,000 miles away serving on a destroyer in the Persian Gulf. I tried everything to appease them. I hired a professional landscaping service, repainted the already perfect trim, removed the basketball hoop. I documented every change with time-stamped photos and submitted formal responses to each violation. I even attended the monthly HOA meeting, bringing a folder of evidence showing our compliance. When I stood to speak during the public comment period, Karen cut me off after 30 seconds. "Your time is up," she announced, though she'd let others speak for 5 minutes. Later, I overheard board member Doug in the parking lot. "Military families don't belong here, always coming and going, never committed to the community." That night, I called my neighbor Steve, who'd lived there for years. "They've done this before," he whispered. "Targeted families. They don't want manufactured violations until they leave. Nobody fights back because legal fees would cost more than moving." I realized then playing nice wasn't working. If they wanted a fight, they'd picked the wrong military family. 3 days later, I found an official-looking envelope taped to our door. Inside was a formal notice of covenant enforcement action with the HOA's embossed seal. Due to continued violations and outstanding fines now totaling $3,350, the association is exercising its right to begin eviction proceedings. You have 30 days to vacate the property or face legal action and additional penalties. They'd scheduled a final hearing conveniently timed during Jessica's deployment, where they would vote on our eviction. The letter included photos of our home with circles around supposed violations, so minor they were barely visible, a garden hose not fully wound, a slightly faded section of paint, a child's bicycle visible from the street. That same day, a process server delivered papers for a lien on our home. The HOA had already filed it with the county. Karen had gone nuclear. She wasn't just trying to push us out anymore. She was trying to take our home while my wife was serving our country. That night I couldn't sleep. At 3:00 a.m. I started researching HOA laws, desperate for anything that might help us. 4 cups of coffee later, I found it the Service Members Civil Relief Act, SCRA. The SCRA provides protections for active duty military members and their families, including safeguards against eviction and foreclosure during deployment. What the HOA was doing wasn't just cruel, it was potentially illegal under federal law. I dug deeper and discovered more. HOAs must follow their own bylaws and apply rules uniformly. I drove around taking pictures of other homes with the same violations we were cited for, including Karen's own property with its unapproved garden statue and non-regulation mailbox. Then I found the smoking gun in our closing documents. The HOA's own covenant stated they couldn't initiate foreclosure actions against deployed service members' families. For the first time in months, I felt hope. The HOA hadn't just picked the wrong family to harass. They'd chosen someone protected by federal law. I contacted the Navy's Legal Assistance Office and explained our situation. The JAG officer I spoke with was furious. "They're doing what?" she exclaimed. "Your wife is deployed. Oh, we're going to shut this down fast." She emailed me information about the SCRA and housing discrimination against military families, along with a formal letter stating the HOA's actions were potentially violating federal law. I gathered every violation notice, every email, every photo of our compliant property, alongside identical violations they ignored at other homes. During Jessica's next secure call, I explained everything. "I'm coming home," she said immediately. "I have emergency family leave available." "But your deployment?" I asked. "Mark, they're trying to take our home. My commander already approved it when I explained. I land 2 hours before that final HOA meeting. Her voice took on the steel I'd heard before in difficult missions. They have no idea who they're messing with. I'm bringing my uniform. The day of the hearing arrived. Jessica's flight was delayed, cutting our timing dangerously close. I paced our living room, reviewing our evidence one last time. The SCRA documentation photos of other homes with identical violations, the HOA's own bylaws contradicting their actions. Our doorbell rang 3 hours before the meeting. Jessica stood there in her travel uniform, exhaustion visible on her face from the 30-hour journey home, but her eyes burned with determination. "Fill me in completely," she said after hugging the kids and me. I showed her everything, every notice, every fine, every photo. She read through the JAG officer's notes, making her own annotations. "They picked the wrong family," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "I've defended our country. I can defend our home." As we prepared to leave, she opened her garment bag and removed her pressed dress blues, the gold insignia catching the light. "Tonight," she said, "they learn what real authority looks like." The HOA meeting was held in the community center, a room I'd avoided for months. As I walked in, conversation stopped. 30 neighbors turned to stare while the 5 board members watched from their elevated table at the front. Karen smiled thinly. "Mark, we've allocated 5 minutes for your case before the vote. Just 5 minutes to defend our home." I took my seat alone. Jessica had insisted on arriving separately. Timing was everything. After rushing through regular business, Karen called my name with barely concealed satisfaction. "We're addressing the ongoing violations at 742 Oakwood Drive. The board has documented 27 violations over 4 months, with fines totaling $3,750. She displayed photos of our violations on a projector screen. "As these remain uncorrected, we'll be voting on covenant enforcement action requiring the property to be vacated." When I tried to speak, Doug cut me off. "The time for explanations was months ago," he stated. "This is simply a formality before our vote." The board members nodded to each other. They thought this was already over. I was mid-sentence in my defense when the community center doors opened. Every head turned. Jessica stood in the doorway in her full navy dress, blue service medals gleaming across her chest, the gold lieutenant bars on her shoulders catching the light. The room fell completely silent. Her posture was parade ground perfect as she walked purposefully to the front, her uniform shoes clicking sharply on the tile floor. Karen's mouth literally dropped open. Doug shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The neighbors in attendance straightened instinctively. Something about a military uniform in full dress commands respect. Jessica placed her service cap on the table facing the board and stood beside me, ramrod straight. "Lieutenant Jessica Mitchell, United States Navy. I've just returned from deployment in the Persian Gulf to address this matter personally." Her voice carried the quiet authority of someone used to commanding sailors. "Before you vote to evict a military family during active deployment, I'd like to explain exactly which federal laws you're about to violate. The Service Members Civil Relief Act specifically prohibits eviction of military families during deployment without a court order," Jessica explained, placing a document on the table. "Furthermore, your own HOA Covenant Section 14 states that foreclosure actions cannot be initiated against families of deployed service members." She opened our evidence folder, laying out photos of other homes with the same violations we'd been cited for. These selective enforcement patterns constitute discrimination against a protected class under federal law. The board members exchanged panicked glances as Jessica continued. "I've consulted with Navy JAG. They're prepared to file federal charges for SCRA violations. That's up to $110,000 in fines per violation and possible criminal penalties." Karen's face had gone from red to ghostly white. Additionally, Jessica concluded, our attorney will file a civil suit for discriminatory housing practices unless all fines are dismissed immediately and written assurance provided that this harassment will cease. The silence that followed was deafening. Karen whispered something to their attorney, who looked increasingly alarmed as the conversation continued. After a tense minute, their lawyer cleared his throat. The board needs to convene in private. They disappeared into a side room for 20 minutes, while neighbors approached us, many apologizing for not speaking up sooner. We had no idea they were targeting a military family, one elderly resident said, squeezing Jessica's hand. When the board returned, their demeanor had completely changed. We're dismissing all fines and violations, Karen announced stiffly, and postponing any enforcement actions indefinitely, their attorney added hastily. The board sincerely regrets any misunderstanding regarding your property status. But it didn't end there. Within a week, we received a formal apology letter. 3 board members, including Karen, resigned abruptly. The county opened an investigation into the HOA's financial practices after other residents came forward with similar stories. That was 2 years ago. Jessica completed her deployment and has since been promoted. We still live in the same house now with a new HOA board that includes 2 military veterans who ensure rules are applied fairly. The previous board's selective enforcement became a case study for HOA management companies across the state. The day after the meeting, neighbors organized a welcome home barbecue for Jessica. Many admitted they'd been afraid to challenge the old board's tactics. You showed us all how to stand up to bullies, our next-door neighbor told us. We later discovered 3 other military families had been forced out before us. With help from the Navy's legal team, they received settlements for their moving costs and financial losses. Sometimes standing your ground isn't just about protecting your own home. It's about ensuring others won't face the same injustice. There's power in knowing your rights and having the courage to defend them, especially when you're fighting for your family.